silence, its windows boarded, its corridors hollowed by time. Paint peeled from the walls like brittle skin, and the faint smell of mold clung to the air. The night guard, Sajid, carried his flashlight in one hand and the heavy ring of keys in the other. He hated the midnight shift here. Too quiet, too heavy, like the building itself was listening. He had almost finished his round when a sound broke the stillness. A voice, small, girlish, and steady. At first, Sajid thought it was the faint echo of a radio somewhere, but the words struck him like ice water on his spine. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. He froze, heart hammering against his ribs. The sound wasn't tea floating through the empty halls. It was coming from behind the old sealed classroom door. That door hadn't been touched in decades. No one had a key for it. No one even remembered why it was locked in the first place. His throat dried as he took a step closer. The flashlight trembled in his hand, casting shaky light over the rusted doorknob. He held his breath, listening. 2 times 4 is 8. The voice was faint, but there was no mistaking it. A child's voice, patient, like she was teaching an unseen class. Sajid pressed his ear against the wood. The air behind it vibrated with the steady rhythm of her speech. And beneath it, something else, like the faint scrape of chalk on a blackboard. Hello? His voice cracked. He immediately regretted speaking, but the silence that followed was worse. The voice had stopped. Then, knock. 3 sharp raps on the inside of the door, inches from his ear. Sajid stumbled back, flashlight beam jerking wildly across the corridor. His keys clanged against the floor. The knocking didn't continue. The classroom fell into silence again, as if it had been holding its breath. Sajid's pulse pounded in his ears. "Who's there?" he whispered, but the hallway swallowed his words. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, softly, the girl's voice returned. 3 times. 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. Calm, unhurried, exactly where she had left off, as though nothing had interrupted her. Sajid backed away, one slow step at a time. His mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe kids had snuck in. Maybe a speaker was hidden inside. Maybe anything but what it sounded like. When his back hit the wall, he turned and fled down the corridor, footsteps echoing like gunshots. The building seemed endless in the dark, the voice still threading faintly behind him, drifting out from the sealed door. By the time he reached the main gate, his hands shook so badly, he fumbled the lock 3 times before it finally gave way. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Later that night, when he told the others, they laughed. "You've been working too many shifts," one said. "Old buildings make old noises." Another shrugged. They dismissed it as fatigue, imagination, nerves. But Sajid knew what he heard, and he wasn't alone. 2 nights later, a man walking his dog past the abandoned school stopped and pulled out his phone. Through the cracked glass of a second-floor window, his recording caught something faint but clear. The voice of a young girl, steady and calm, drifting into the night air. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Her voice was soft but unmistakable, and the recording ended with something no one could explain. The sound of knuckles knocking 3 times against the inside of that locked door. The abandoned school stood like a dark monument against the night sky, its broken windows reflecting the pale glow of the moon. A group of 4 students crept across the cracked courtyard, their laughter forced, their nerves barely hidden beneath bravado. The challenge had started as a joke. Sneak inside, prove their courage, and leave with a story no one else dared to tell. But as they approached the sagging front doors, the silence pressed against them, heavier than they expected. "Come on, it's just a building," Farouk scoffed, his smirk trying too hard. "Ghosts aren't real." Behind him, Hina clutched her phone like a weapon, its dim light trembling across the peeling paint. "Then why does everyone say the classroom is sealed? Why not just open it?" The leader of the group, Imran, said nothing. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched at his sides. This had been his idea, pushed by the others, but now that he stood at the threshold, he couldn't shake the crawling unease in his stomach. The doors groaned as they pushed them open, the sound echoing like a scream across the empty halls. Dust billowed into their faces, and the sharp smell of mildew stung their noses. Inside, the corridors stretched into darkness, the floor littered with papers that had yellowed into fragile curls. "Stay close," Imran muttered, his voice low. They moved as a cluster, footsteps loud against the silence. The walls were lined with faded glass photos, their faces blurred by time, yet the eyes seemed to follow them. The air was heavy, carrying the stale scent of chalk long after the boards had been wiped clean. "See? Nothing," Farouk said with a laugh, though it came out too quickly, too high-pitched. He tapped a locker with his knuckles. "Just rats and old wood." But then it came, a voice, faint and distant, threading through the silence like a ghost slipping between walls. "Good morning, class." The group froze, the sound hitting them like ice water. Hina gasped, her phone beam shaking across the hallway. "You heard that, right? Tell me you heard that." Imran's heart pounded, his throat closing. The voice had been unmistakable. A young girl speaking clearly, though soft, as if addressing an audience they could not see. Farouk laughed again, but it broke halfway. "Some old recording, maybe. Don't freak out." He tried to walk ahead, but his steps faltered when the voice continued, calm and steady. "Turn to page 12. Begin reading." The four of them stared at each other, the silence between them louder than the voice itself. No one moved. No one breathed. "Imran," Hina whispered, "we should leave. Right now." But Imran's feet carried him forward, almost against his will. He knew exactly where the sound was coming from, the far end of the corridor, the sealed classroom. Every story, every rumor pointed here. And now, the voice was real. They stopped before the door, boards nailed across it, edges eaten by rot, but still holding. The voice was clearer here, the girl's tone patient, rhythmic, like she had been repeating the same lesson for years. Who is she talking to?" whispered Saad, the quietest of the group until now. His eyes darted to the others, searching for answers no one had. The air shifted, a slow creak. All four turned toward the sound, the doorknob. It was turning. The group staggered back as the handle rattled violently, shaking against the frame. Boards groaned, the wood straining, as if something on the other side was desperate to get out. Imran's chest heaved, his pulse slamming in his ears. He grabbed Hina's arm, pulling her back. Farouk stared, face pale, his earlier bravado gone. The rattling stopped. Silence fell so suddenly it made their ears ring. And then, clear as day, the girl's voice whispered from the other side of the door, so close it felt like she was speaking through the wood itself. Are you ready for today's lesson? The silence after the rattling was unbearable, thick like a weight pressing down on their chests. Imran could feel every hair on his arms standing upright. He stepped closer to the sealed door despite the tremor in his legs, his ear almost brushing the splintered wood. The others watched him in disbelief, too afraid to stop him. That was when he heard it, a whisper softer than breath, slipping directly into his ear. Imran. He jerked back so fast he nearly fell, his blood turning to ice. His name. She had said his name. Hina grabbed his wrist. What did you hear? Tell me. But before he could answer, another whisper came, this time stronger, threading through the cracks of the wood. Farouk. The skeptic's smirk vanished. His jaw dropped, eyes wide and terrified. No. You're just messing with us. One of you has a speaker. His voice cracked as the doorknob twitched again. Once, then fell still. The whispering returned, louder now. Not just names, but a command. Sit down. The lesson is starting. Saad backed away, shaking his head. We shouldn't be here. I told you, we shouldn't. The sound of knocking exploded from the other side. Hard, angry, insistent. The boards quivered as if struck by fists. Imran's heart thundered against his ribs, each beat telling him to run, but his feet refused to move. Farouk, pale and sweating, tried to laugh. It's just some crazy echo, right? Someone trying to scare us. His voice betrayed him, breaking mid-sentence. Imran forced himself to crouch and tug at the boards, needing to prove something, anything. But the wood was old, swollen tight with years of neglect. As his hands shook against the splinters, Saad tugged him back. Don't. Just don't. They stumbled down the hall to an old storage room, hoping for clues, for proof that none of this was real. Dust coated the shelves, stacks of yellowed papers crumbling at their touch. Hina's flashlight landed on a pile of brittle newspapers. She pulled one free, coughing as dust filled the air. The headline froze them all. Tragedy in classroom 6. Student dies during lesson. The article was brief, faded, but the details were clear enough. A girl, no older than 12, collapsed during a morning class decades ago. The school had sealed the room afterward, declaring it unsafe, though no official reason was ever given. Whispers in the article hinted at disturbances, unexplained voices, a sense that the girl had never left. Imran's hands trembled as he held the paper. She's still in there, he whispered, not sure if he was speaking to the others or to himself. Hina's face was pale in the flashlight glow. She knows your names. That means she's listening. Farouk swallowed hard, his bravado fully gone. We should go. Right now. Before the sound of chalk scraping cut him off. All four froze. The noise came from behind the sealed door, sharp and steady. The unmistakable rhythm of words being written. They crept back down the hall, despite their terror, drawn by the sound. The air grew colder, every step tightening the grip of dread around their throats. When they reached the door again, the scraping stopped. Then the voice returned, louder than before, no longer calm but firm, almost impatient. Open your books, read with me. The floor beneath their feet shivered. The wood of the door creaked and bulged, as if something inside was pressing against it. Imran shone the flashlight down the corridor, desperate for another way out. And that was when he saw it, a smaller door, half hidden by broken furniture, wedged into the side wall near the corner. Its edges were rotten, but not sealed. A second entrance. He turned back to the others, breath shallow, words barely leaving his lips. "There's another way in." The whisper came again, sharper now, almost demanding. "Come in, sit down." And for the first time, the boards across the sealed door began to crack